Welcome to the October the 29th, 1991 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie. And we're bringing you today our history tape number 158. And we're very excited today as we document history of people that have caused it to happen in Grand Prairie and also are continuing and are very wonderful citizens of Grand Prairie. And today we have three members of the Keach family, and we're just so delighted to have them with us. And we're going to welcome, first of all, Lucille. We're glad to have you with us today, my dear.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. It's wonderful that you would take time to come out and be with us today.
Well, thank you.
And Mr. Bill?
You bet.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you with us today. And Miss Linda?
Thank you, Ann.
How nice to have you on the set with us today with your parents. And we're just looking forward to our interview so that we can document the history of the Keaches that have been in Grand Prairie, some of you for about 58 years, and others for a lot less amount of time, Linda. But first of all, let's start with Mr. Tom M. Bill Keach, and look right down to your camera, and we'd like for you to give us your parents' name. Would you do that first for us?
Well, Thomas James Keach was my father.
All right.
And Ida DeLone Keach was my mother.
And her maiden name?
Copeland.
Copeland, okay. Your wonderful parents lived in what area when they were married?
They were down in Bell County, I believe, and around Rogers and places like that.
All right. Now, where was Bill born?
Bill was born in Grand Prairie here.
In Grand Prairie, Texas. Well, what brought them?
Well, I meant at Baylor, but I mean we were.
No, you're talking about your son. She wants to know.
You're talking about my son?
I want to know where you were born.
Oh, I was born in Fort Worth.
In Fort Worth, Texas? Okay.
Yes, I was. 1916.
1916?
25th of November birthday.
All right.
I thought you was talking, say I have a son named the same name as I have, and I thought you were speaking of him.
All right. Now, tell me about you, Mr. Keach. I'd like to know what brought your parents to Fort Worth.
Well, really, I don't know really what brought them there. My father was in the furniture business, shipping clerk, and while I was growing up quite a bit, we had lived in Dallas and Fort Worth and also in San Antonio for a while. So we actually, I'd say our home was more or less in Dallas at the last. Because he'd worked for some big firms as a shipping clerk.
All right.
And he moved to different places. That's where we were, see, like that.
Do you have any brothers or sisters that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I have one brother.
All right.
And I have one sister.
All right. Would you like to name them?
Yeah, I have a brother named Orlis James Keach.
All right.
And I have Lois Keach Blackburn. She's married to Tiny Blackburn here. You know the Blackburns, I'm sure.
Know the Blackburns, all right. Is your brother living?
Yes, he is.
Where does he live?
He lives on, what's the name of that street?
Renova.
Renova, He's 85 years old.
Wonderful.
In good health.
All right.
In good health,
And you were born in this Metroplex area, and where did you go to school?
Well, I went in Dallas some, and most of mine was in Dallas and some at Waco.
All right. Now, in your school years when you were young, did you have a favorite teacher that really did impress you, Mr. Keach, that you just loved?
I really don't know for sure. That's way back, but we had some pretty good teachers, I'd say. I think they were real nice. They were good. They took interest in you in every way.
All right. Now, as you were growing up with your one brother and one sister, did you have any chores to do when you were a young kid?
Oh, yes,
Tell us about when you were a young'un.
Well, I was worked on the farm quite a bit.
All right.
But then when we came from, went to up to McKinney, Texas, I was quite young there. Then we came to Grand Prairie in fall of 1933. And I was real young. I was about 17 years of age when we came here.
All right. Now, what brought your dad to Grand Prairie, Texas, your family?
I really don't know. Do you, Charlotte Melinda? I really don't. What brought us here? We were there on a farm on McKinney, and we went to Louisville. Then we came from Louisville over to Grand Prairie.
But was he still in the furniture shipping business when he lived in Grand Prairie?
Yes, Yeah,
Did he commute to Dallas?
He was in Dallas, and he moved here, and he was still in, and his health got bad on him, and he had to retire here in Grand Prairie.
How did he get back and forth to work from Grand Prairie to Dallas? Did he use the interurban, or did he have his own car? Or
no,
what?
he never did driving. He always used interurban or drove rode with someone else. He never did drive.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
Now, we like to interview people that have had an opportunity
Yeah.
to use the old interurban.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember that when we had the old interurban building downtown there, you know, on Jefferson there. And a fellow named was Shorty Furl, where you knew of him at all.
Yes.
He is the one who owned that building. And he sold that building. Then up on the corner there, it used to be a Britain building, they called it. And that was torn down eventually in the years, you know. Then they had a cannery right across the street from that. Mrs. Hale used to run that.
And that's a cannery?
People would off the farm bring stuff in,
Yes.
and they would can it and give them so much and kept so much of it.
I see.
Then it went for what they call WPA. People distributed out. And I worked there when I was about 18 years of age. I was one of the boiler men. I cooked off several hundred cans of food a day there. We'd cook it, then we'd put it into a big cooling bath and let it cool. Then it was put out and labeled and distributed on the shelves. I worked there for, a couple of years, so I guess it was.
All right, and if it were still in town today, what would be at that site right today?
What's there now?
Yes.
It was where cafeteria, what's that, what's the name of that?
Wyatt's Cafeteria?
Wyatt's Cafeteria, that's where it was.
That is wonderful that the old cannery was located right there. You're the first one I've talked with that's documented that, so we're glad to know that. And
Now,
about what year was that?
Gosh, that
When
was,
you were 19, we can subtract and figure out
that
about
was
what
probably
year.
about 2 years later that when that was there.
Oh, right.
I was pretty young at that, working there. In other words, my father had gotten us back, and I'd taken over the household and was working, making things for me at that time.
All right.
It was about 1936.
About 1936.
About 1936. We're going to let you rest a minute. Now, let's get over here with Lucille.
Yeah, you
Lucille,
bet.
would you look right out into your camera over here, and let's get your history documented. Let's start out with your dad and your mom and give us their full names, and then we're going to get into the rest of the family.
Well, my dad, his name was Joel Frank Huggins.
Okay.
And that happens to be an Indian name.
Oh, it is.
He was half Indian and half German.
How wonderful.
And my mother, Myrtle Marie Martin, she was English and Irish.
All right. Now, how did they meet and where did they meet?
I don't know where they met.
All right.
I don't remember that much about that.
All right. Were
They got married in Rockwall, Texas.
Rockwall, Texas. That's great. And were you born in the Rockwall area?
No.
All right. Tell me about
I
your
was
parents.
born in Grand Prairie.
Oh, in-
Not Grand Prairie, but Arcadia Park. You know where?
Oh, yes.
Do you know the old Horton House there?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I was born about 5 blocks back up this way.
That is wonderful.
And you know that old Horton House burned down, but that thing was put up with pegs by the. It was shipped over here from. The lumber and the pegs and everything was shipped over here from Spain.
Oh, that is exciting.
Put that old house up. It was 3 stories. Did you ever see it?
Yes, I did.
Wasn't that something?
Yes, it was.
Well,
It was
was
beautiful.
something.
All right. Now, we have your mother and dad's name. How about your brothers and sisters? Would you like to name all of your brothers and sisters?
Let's see, Louis.
Is that your first brother?
Louis Elijah Huggins.
All right.
And Joel Frank Huggins Jr.
All right.
and Paul Edward Huggins.
All right. Now, how about your sisters?
Clover Mauveline Keach. Wait a minute, I'm getting that wrong. Clover Mauveline Huggins.
All right.
That's my oldest sister. She's
right.
buried over in that graveyard over there.
In Arcadia Park. Is that the old Horton Cemetery?
The old Horton Cemetery.
Yes.
And I tried to get them to do something about that. And you know, you can't get them to do nothing.
It's real hard to get to it, isn't it?
Yeah, if they just put a road up there, I'd be appreciative. So I could walk up there without and get covered with all these shirts, little sticking things.
Yes. All right. How about your second sister?
Nadine,
And the last one besides you?
Daly Huggins.
Okay. So there were 3 girls and 3
Yeah,
boys.
I got another girl to put
All
down
right.
there. Valley. I forgot her other name now.
Yeah.
I forgot the middle name, Valley.
Okay, Valley was the other one.
Yes.
Okay, and were they all born in the Arcadia Park area, or were just you?
Just me, I guess. No, I don't know where all of them were born. I couldn't tell you. I know where my baby brother was born. He was born in Como, Texas.
What'd your dad do for a living?
He was a carpenter.
He was a carpenter. That's wonderful. Did you ever have any chores to do as a member of the family?
Boy, did I. I had lots of chores to do.
Okay.
And I taken care of my baby brother and my baby sister
Okay.
from the time I was 10 years old on.
When you went to school, did you go to school in the Dallas area anywhere?
Arcadia Park
And to Arcadia Park School. How wonderful.
and
You have-
Sunset High.
In Sunset High School. All right, tell me, did you have any favorite teachers at Arcadia or at Sunset that were just real special to you?
At Arcadia Park, I don't remember her name, but I sure remember how nice she was to me. Some days my mother would have to work after my daddy died in 34.
Yes.
She'd let me bring my baby brother with me to school and set him on the same seat with me.
Well-
And I thought that was the nicest teacher I ever seen.
Oh.
And that's when we could have prayer in the schools, you know.
Yes, yes.
And I thought that was great.
She was
Her.
really good to you,
Oh,
wasn't
she
she?
was good to me.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Letting me bring, you know, they're not supposed to let you bring children with you to school them
That's
days, but they did.
They did. That was an emergency, wasn't it?
It sure was with me.
All right. And how did you meet Mr. Keach?
Oh. Well, him and my mother worked together
All right.
at the cannery. And one day he brought her home. And and the next weekend they were going to have a fish fry
Yes.
down there. And she says, "Won't you come down there?" I said, "Okay, I will if I can, Mom." And so I went and she introduced me down there to him,
And
down at the cannery.
And he knew how beautiful you were because he was a smart young man, wasn't he?
He must have.
Yes. All right. Let's get down to a little bit more about Mr. Keach, then I'm going to come back and let you name the kids, okay? In just a few
Okay.
minutes?
Okay.
All right. Now, Bill, you worked in the cannery. Then what happened to you? What did you do
Well,
for
when
a
I
living
left there, I went to work at the Hensley Field and kind of working for the county
All
and
right.
driving a Caterpillar with dirt work. And we had Hensley Field there at one time there. You know where Hensley Field was?
Yes. And you helped construct the runways?
Yes, I did. I pulled the big grader we had, which we don't have no more. Those maintainers, they call them, you know?
Yes,
Big
yes.
blades. They have different front-end loaders and things. But now I had pulled those and pulled up a lot of dirt there, and they hauled it off, and they put those big runways in there today.
Okay. Do you know what year that was that you helped
Well-
work at Hensley Field?
Well, that was right after, that was along in the early, that's about the 40s, wasn't it? Somewhere along in that.
Just about the time Navy Dallas came in?
Yeah. and
All right, Navy Dallas came in 41, so that was probably in the 39s and the 40s.
Yeah, that's right.
that you
That's
were
right.
doing.
About way
Good.
back.
I'm glad to document that. You know, Navy Dallas just celebrated their 50th birthday,
Yeah,
so you helped get ready for Navy Dallas.
Yeah, I even helped build some parts of after I went as apprentice carpenter. I came back and helped build Chance Vault, one or two of the buildings there.
Yes.
I used to work for the larger contractors, big contractors.
All right, how about naming some of those larger contractors that you worked
Well,
for?
I worked for Austin Company, and
All right.
Robert E. McKee,
Okay.
and see some others of them I had worked. I can't call the name right off, but I'd worked some of the biggest companies there are in Dallas and different places. I took out as apprentice carpenter, and I followed that through and got to be a journeyman carpenter. Then I went out and worked for several number of years. My brother and I worked together. We were partners,
Yes.
buddies, you know. We'd have a carpenter. We worked on these high-rise. Almost got killed a couple of times in my time of it.
That's right.
And then we finally went to work for Perkins Brothers. Well, it didn't work for them. We used to buy lumber from Perkins Brothers Lumber Company.
And that's an old Grand Prairie
Yeah,
company.
uh-huh.
Perkins, okay.
Yeah. In other words, Mr. Perkins and Mr. Hampton came out of Dallas
All right.
and built this lumber yard.
Okay.
Then in return, I went getting calls out of that yard to work. I bought my materials from them. They wasn't obligated to me, and I wasn't obligated to them. But in return, we got to be real good, close friends and all.
Yes.
And I could buy material from them and just sign a ticket on and go on, you know. And when I got through with my job, I could pay them. I can remember one time, D. Perkins, I owed a pretty good bill in there, and I said, D, I'm going to pay you what I owe you. He said, Bill, go on. He said, I ain't got too much going on today. He said, come back tomorrow, next day. You know you can come like any other time. I don't want to fool with you right now. Most time people, with much money we'd owe them, they'd want that money.
Today.
That day. But
Yes.
he just said, please come on back later and take care of it. I don't want to fool with you today.
Was that Mr. Morris Hampton?
Yeah,
M.H.
M.H. Hampton.
Hampton.
Uh-huh.
That's great.
Yeah. And he was, you know, finally went after they sold out and everything. He went down to the bank as a bank's officer
Yes.
down there. And down to where the First National Bank.
Yes.
And I could go in there and borrow money on an open note from him.
Yes.
Then he went up to the other bank, you know, up there on Carrier.
Republic Bank.
Public Bank up there. And I did, you know, up there, did business up there with him, you know. But he's passed on. But he was a very fine man.
Yes, he was. He really was. All right. Where did you establish your home when you and Lucille married here in Grand Prairie, Texas?
Well, we lived here in Grand Prairie. First, when we first married, we lived out south of Grand Prairie.
All right.
Had a little small house out there. Then finally, 1941, we married there.
All right.
Then I went into, like I said, as an apprentice carpenter. And I went to Shepherd Field and worked there.
All right.
Then I came back and I went to work for different big contractors in Dallas. Carried a card for 20 years, my brother and I did.
Yeah.
Then finally, we'd branch off from our work and start contracting. And we wasn't established enough to hold our business going. So we'd have to go back with our tools and work for big companies, and we'd come back in. So finally, we got where we had enough business coming in, especially out of the Perkins Brothers Lumber Company. We got all of their calls, most all of their calls out of there. Anytime a ticket come in, they'd stamp it up on something. I'd come in, pick it up, and go make a call on it.
Great.
And I'd figure the job, and whatever I got out of that job was mine, and I bought the material from them for, you know, for the return that way. I didn't obligate to them anything, but I bought that way. So we finally got where we was named Keach Brothers Builders in Grand Prairie.
Great.
So we built commercial buildings over here and some housing. We used to do a lot of remodel. I doubt if it's really way back, there's a street in Grand Prairie that him and I did some work on the streets. I could almost assure you we had.
Where are you located now?
Well, we're not in business anymore. For that, my brother, he's retired,
Okay.
and I do a little something occasionally, but I'm not classed, you know, as going out now.
You're kind of retired, aren't
Well,
you?
I have enough work for my children and things that I do for the 5 girls and 1 boy that I have.
All right.
Their cars and different things. And then I built my son his home out south of Grand Prairie. We went out there and bought an acre of land, and then we split it. To show you how different thing. I think it's been 7 years ago, hasn't it? I built him a beautiful home out there. And I built it and did all the finished work inside, and he hit me so. But I built that home for $62,000, and it praised after we got through for $130,000, I believe.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right, we're going to leave you for a minute, and we're going to find out about all these kids, because we're talking about the kids, and we don't even have them named yet, do we? All right. Lucille, why don't you look out into the camera and tell us about the kids, and you all got married. He gave us the date that you married, but now let's start naming our boys and girls, shall we?
Okay. Linda Gale
All right.
was the first one.
All right, we have Miss Linda with us today.
Miss Linda's with us
All right.
today.
All right.
And she was born to the old Bobo Hospital in Arlington.
Oh, yes, all right. Okay.
And then
Charlotte.
All
is
right.
next, and he's born here in Grand Prairie, Charlotte.
All right.
And Lona,
All right.
they were both born in Grand Prairie. And no, Shirley,
Shirley's next.
born in Dallas,
Okay.
Methodist Hospital.
All right.
And Dell Ann, she was next, and she's born in Dallas too.
And your son's name is Bill Jr.?
Bill Jr., and he was born at Begler in Dallas.
Okay, now you have these 5 wonderful girls and 1 son. Do you have any grandkids?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we have
do you want to
4.
name any of those, or do you just want to tell me how many?
We have 4 and 3 is 7. We have 7.
7 grandchildren.
7 grandchildren,
Oh, that is wonderful. So when we do Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's a big deal of the day.
It is a big deal of the day. More than I'm able to handle down there.
Most recently, you and Bill have celebrated your 50th wedding anniversary, and I saw that in the paper, and I said,
right.
Wouldn't they be a real splendid interview? Tell us what kind of party you had on your 50th.
Oh, we had a wonderful party.
Okay.
And the Dallas Power and Light
Yes.
let us use their building, and it didn't charge us nothing. They said we were deserving.
We
That's
didn't ask for anything, but they told us been that long, said they would do that.
That they would let us use it.
Wonderful, because it was your 50th. I know it must be because it was your 50th.
It was, and it was just wonderful. It was all in mauve and I guess
A lot of
you
our
call it
church
gold and
members came
mauve.
to it and all, you know.
All right, now, Bill, you've mentioned your church, so let's talk about your church, where you go to church, and give them
I'd like
a little
to talk
plug.
to you about that.
Let's talk about that a little
Well, I
bit.
belong to the Calvary Baptist Church,
All right,
and I'm very fond of it. And I think we got some of the finest members that I ever known.
you bet.
And I'll always say, if anybody come to our church and they can tell me and leave there that they haven't been treated real friendly and welcome there, I'd buy them the biggest dinner that can be bought,
That's
a
great.
lunch, whatever it is.
That's it.
So we do try to be one of the friendliest churches there are, and I understand it. We have one of the largest Sunday school class in the city, and it's just a wonderful church. That's all.
Well, I interviewed your pastor,
Yeah,
the Reverend Oldham.
He's a great man.
And he's long since retired and enjoying life, but I know that y'all are doing good things at Calvary there.
I'd like to tell you one thing about him. I do
All right.
believe that he's been a many time to come see anybody at hospital when he was worse off and the one was in the hospital.
Yes.
He would come to see you. A lot of them won't do that now. Some of them won't, some of them will, but he has really been one.
That's great.
And we have a real good pastor there now, Brother Ayers. He's doing real good, and I like his preaching and all, so it's wonderful.
I'm going to get back with you in just a minute, and I want you to tell me about some of the important movers and shakers here in town that have been important in your life and in your business, and I'll get back with you in just a minute on that. But let's talk with Linda just a little bit.
You bet.
Linda, what is it like to be the older of all of these wonderful girls and born in such a wonderful, illustrious family and living in Grand Prairie all these years?
Well, we're a very close family, and we've remained very close. We have a lot of family in Grand Prairie. I have a lot of cousins and relatives, and that's really unusual. A lot of people are kin to me here in Grand Prairie, and they used to tease me when I was in real estate. They couldn't talk about anybody because they might be talking about one of my relatives. And but it's real unusual that we've all stayed pretty close to Grand Prairie, to the hometown. And I went to school here and have worked here, and it's really comforting to still be in your own hometown, you know, with all your friends and relatives and family so close. Most families will stray from their hometown, and there are not that many there, but I guess I've got about 100 relatives here in town, if you get to counting all of them.
And then
That's really important.
then you have a lot of Gopher friends too, don't you?
Yes, a lot of Gopher friends.
Yes. Do you want to mention going to school here in Grand Prairie? Were there any special teachers that really were meaningful to you?
Yes, there was. Mr. Coffey, he was a science teacher here in Grand Prairie, and I've sold him a home since then, by being in real estate. And he was one, and Mr. Elrod was one of my teachers that it really impressed me a lot. And one of my first grade teachers, Mrs. Anderson, was still living up until, I don't know if she still is now or not, but she was a big impression in my life.
Oh, that is great. Well, I want to really salute you for coming today, because if you hadn't have come along, I don't believe I would have ever gotten Bill and Lucille on this set today. And I thank you for being my goodwill ambassador and helping to document this history today. All right, let's get back to Bill a minute. Let's talk about some of those folks that've been real important in your life, like some of the contractors that you've worked with locally, and where you live, in what area of Grand Prairie do you live, and what do you look forward to in that area of Grand Prairie as it expands?
When we first came to Grand Prairie, like I told you at the beginning there, back in 1933, fall of 1933. We moved here and we lived down on Jefferson, and wasn't too far from Hensley Field on Jefferson there. And would you believe you could rent a real nice home back in those days? I'll never forget that. Dad and I, he'd rent this out, 4-bedroom house, paid $8 a month for it.
Oh, that's great.
Nice home. And then we moved into upper end of town for a while. Then we finally moved out south of Grand Prairie on 35 acres of land out there. And I was about 18, something like that there, 18 years old. And I can recall that's 7.5 miles out there. I remember I'd walked 1-2 times to Grand Prairie, up here at the old Uptown Theater. I guess you knew where that was.
Yes.
And would you believe that there cost you 1 thin dime to see a show there?
Go to the movie.
Yeah. And a fellow owned that there, worked, him and his wife, they were named Walkers. She worked at the ticket office and he worked around in the lobby part, you know.
Yes.
He was a big heavyset guy.
Yes.
So they're both gone on. Then I think later there was another Wayne's Theater come in, but it didn't stay long.
All right.
Then there weren't but 2 barbershops in that town at that time. One of them was Sanders, and one of them was, gosh, can't think.
Graham.
Graham. Oh yeah, Graham was here. Then it was one other here too, Lewis's.
Lewis's, okay.
Lewis's barbershop. There, they were on the center there and around, and that's about all was here at that time. Then they had Massey grocery store here.
Yes.
And he was a wonderful fellow. You could walk into his grocery store. I'll never forget. I was young. You could buy bread for about, 5 cents a loaf, wasn't it, Lucille, back then, I believe it was. Eggs for about 10 cents a dozen, so forth that way. And things were real cheap. But you could hear him singing all over that grocery store.
That's Olin's father, wasn't it?
And then he's been at our church a number of times. Olin, you know, Massey, that works in the funeral home, you know.
Yes.
He's came to our church quite a few times to sing for us.
Yes.
But I remember that kind of impression. Way back there, he'd walk in there and you could hear him. Maybe he's way back to the back putting up groceries, but you could hear him all of that store. He loves to sing, see.
Who was the most influential person in your whole life in Grand Prairie other than your family? Who would you say helped you the most?
Well,
One person.
I think the Perkin Brothers Lumber Company got me to start what I'd gotten here and gotten acquainted with people.
Yeah.
They were real wonderful people, and Joe's still living here in town now. But Dee Perkins is dead.
Yes.
And his mother and father dead. But I think that those was really about the closest friends that I had, just in the business line. They trusted me real well, and I trusted them, and they were real close to me in that way.
Wonderful. All right, we got about 1 more minute left, and I'm going to give Lucille the last minute. What has it been like to live in Grand Prairie, and are you excited about your grandchildren being in this area?
What it's like to live in Grand Prairie? Well, for the last 20 years, I think it is, it hadn't been too exciting because that road has held us down where we can't do a thing.
All right.
And I've been wanting to get out of that house for quite some time.
Where is your house located?
At 1130 Northwest Dallas Street.
All right, Northwest Dallas, you're looking for the road to come through, and one of these days, you think that's going to happen?
I think it will.
I think it will.
Because if it hadn't, I'd already remodeled and done something.
All right.
Because I just don't want to remodel it if I'm going to have to sit there and wait and wait and wait.
All right. And Linda, what do you forecast in a half minute for Grand Prairie, Texas?
I think Grand Prairie is on a big move. If we can get this Highway 161 through, it'll open up Grand Prairie, and I'm looking forward to that because I would like to see Grand Prairie grow and get a lot larger and be like our sister city in Arlington.
I want to thank y'all for coming and sharing your lives with us today and
Enjoyed being with you.
Talking about the Keaches. It's been wonderful to learn a little bit more about you all. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.